Hey guys, Justin here. This is going to be kind of an off-the-cuff video, but it's going to be a response to, well, my own video. The video that I posted earlier in the week about how much iRacing NASCAR costs. And I tried to keep that video about as objective as possible, which is pure numbers, no real opinions on anything, except for maybe what you consider dead or alive in terms of participation. But this video I kind of wanted to go into my own opinions about the iRacing pricing model and why I don't think it's that bad, especially in the year of 2022. So first off, what I want to elaborate on the previous video is also the cost of hardware. Now, I only talked about the content itself with iRacing and didn't really include the price of a wheel, the price of a computer that you may need, because quite frankly, you might not need the best computer for iRacing. On low graphics, you can run a pretty cheap computer, I would say less than $500 easy, and I know that that's not super cheap, but for the price of an average game console, I think you can buy a PC that runs iRacing smoothly and at least low graphics. And then for a wheel, I think that just getting into the game, I know quite a few people who are successful on controller, so I don't want to alienate people just on their ability to buy a wheel, because there could be a type of person who has the budget to where they can buy a controller, a very cheap computer, and then also buy 2 or 3 pieces of content a season. And if you add all that up, you pay a good amount up front. You pay probably, well, the cost of the computer pretty much up front plus the subscription. And then you're really only paying $30 every season, a little less than 50 maybe. But there's a lot of people where that could be in their price range and who might get turned off if I say, okay, you need a Logitech G29 or G920 or else it's not even worth getting the game. Because I don't think that's true. I think that you can have a very good experience on iRacing with a controller, but I just think it's going to be a little more difficult. But that difficulty could also be a source of a challenge that's fun in a different way. So now adding those costs in, I actually doing research for this found that the Logitech G29 is on sale on Amazon for $200. That's a freaking steal. If you're watching this on the day of, go look at that if you don't have a wheel yet. This is your chance if you want an entry-level wheel for a great price. But anyways, that was a quick aside. If we take a normal price for an entry-level wheel, which is around $250 to $300, and then we also add a base-level computer that can run iRacing smoothly, which is about $500, and go ahead and add maybe a headset to that if you really need to buy a keyboard, something like that. Once you add all of that together, you're looking at about $1,300 for all the iRacing NASCAR content, your wheel, your computer. If you're just starting from nothing, from the ground up, that's about what you're getting into it at. But even after all that cost, there are still ways that you can enjoy iRacing by paying a very minimal amount of money and working your way up as you're able to until you're able to race basically everything that you want to race. When I first started iRacing in high school at around 2014, 2016 era, I didn't want to spend any money on iRacing because I just thought it was a ton of money for the time that I was kind of saving up for college for, other things like that. But even with that, iRacing was still my favorite game because of all the free content that was available to me. Basically, for 3 years, all I did was rookie street stocks and pickup cup, with the occasional Mazda race, I guess. And sure, it sucked knowing that there are races that I couldn't be a part of because I wasn't able to pay the money to get up to those licenses and those cars and whatnot, but I was kind of stubborn in my way, basically saying, this is my favorite game right now, I'll play it how I want to, I'm not aiming to be the best in anything, I'm just gonna enjoy iRacing how I choose to enjoy it. So I guess this story is for all the other kids who are watching all this YouTube iRacing content saying, man, I wish I could race iRacing like these guys at a different car, a different track every week, but it's just so daunting spending all that money, I'm just not going to get the game. You can basically have a very good racing experience by buying a $70 used wheel. I had a Logitech Driving Force GT, had force feedback broken, but it was perfectly fun to race with. And with that and my crappy computer that probably only cost me $300 at the time, it was just chugging along to barely be able to run iRacing. I was running Pickup Cup and I was having a blast because that was a better experience than I could have on any other NASCAR game in my opinion. Now, sure, if you want something like career mode, you can always get another NASCAR game for that, but just for the pure person-to-person racing, even in the depths of Pickup Cup, I found it a lot more enjoyable than any other online NASCAR racing that I've ever done. So now that I talked about how to enjoy iRacing on a mega budget of sorts, I want to talk about the other end of the spectrum. Basically, after you buy all the content, which I've more or less done for NASCAR, looking back and say, was it really worth the money that I paid for? And honestly, in 2022, I don't really see much of a problem with what iRacing charges. Sure, it could always be cheaper. I'm not saying that they probably don't overcharge for some of their tracks, but to have tracks be laser scanned takes labor. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm sure that they make a hefty profit on it. That's not something I'm denying. But at the end of the day, the way that we're enjoying a video game in 2022 is very different than how people enjoyed video games when this game first came out in 2008. Back then, I think it was a really ballsy move to have iRacing be a subscription and a DLC based model. You had games kind of be one or the other back then. Maybe World of Warcraft had a subscription base, or I guess I played Club Penguin. I was a kid back then. And then for DLC, maybe you had some beginnings of DLC, but iRacing having both just seemed outlandish back then. I can see why it would get flack in the early days. But today, you see games on the market, and they're basically money pits all of themselves, where people are very, very happy to spend that $300 to $500 a year range on anything from useless skins to in-game items that can help them progress. Now, iRacing is kind of taking that to the extreme end because you can't progress without the DLC. But I think that the idea of the pricing in these days is not going to matter as much to a regular consumer as it did back when iRacing first launched. And you can call my next part extremely cope. I will allow it. You can go in the comments and say you're coping hard right now, but I really think that iRacing's pricing model increases the level of racing on the service. Now, that's kind of hard to say when you see Twitter all the time with the new pictures of the worst clips of racers you've ever seen. Oh, iRacing's gone downhill, sure. But if you put an iRacing lobby next to a NASCAR Heat lobby where they can basically enter the game for only $49 or however much it costs now, and a pretty cheap game console and a TV, if you put those people in a lobby, the level of racing that they have next to people who have put hundreds of dollars into the game, I think that the people who have put $100 into the game in general, on average, are more likely to care about the output of the race. And the reason that I think a lot of the people say that racing on iRacing was better in the old days was because in the old days, it was less common for a kid to convince their parents to pay for hundreds of dollars worth of video game content for them. Whereas today, that's kind of what people ask for like birthdays and stuff. They're like, I want a steering wheel for a video game as opposed to like a bike or something. So I think the original pricing model of iRacing was meant to keep out kids. That is something that I'll always believe. And I think that as iRacing got older and older and the world changed and kids went into iRacing anyways, I do think that's part of what led to iRacing's product kind of going a little bit down in terms of the quality of races every once in a while. But even with that, I will uphold that there is no match for oval racing in general, not even just NASCAR, on any other sim or service like there is on iRacing. But I want to hear your comments down below. Is iRacing currently pricing you out of their service? Do you think that you've bought too much iRacing content? Do you think that it's overpriced? Or are you satisfied for what you've got and what you've paid for? I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.